Welcome to the Big Change of the Film interview series, and my name is Jason Cohen. I personally have lost over 120 pounds, and every week I chat with inspiring individuals who've also lost significant amounts of weight, hear their stories, and pass along some of that inspiration to others. Including today's guest and myself, the total pounds lost is now up to 11,760 pounds. If you've been enjoying this interview series, there are a couple things that you can do to help support it. Number one is that you can buy a t-shirt through our website, which is bigchangethefilm.com. 100% of the profits from those sales go directly towards the production of the film, as well as this interview series. Number two is, if you've been enjoying it, you can go onto iTunes and leave us a review. It helps others to see and find out about this interview series, and just helps get the word out there about what I'm working on. One thing I wanted to mention this week is that if you've been a long-time listener or watcher of these videos, you probably know who Tim Kaufman is. Tim's been a long-time supporter of what I'm working on, and he does incredible work himself. Tim has a new cookbook that he came out with this week called Fat Man's Essential 40 Plant-Based Recipes. It can be found through Amazon or through the Kindle app. It is fantastic. I got a chance to preview it a little early, and I think you'll really enjoy it. It's got a lot of great recipes, really simple, easy to do things that he and Heather eat all the time, that I've had the good fortune to eat a couple times myself, and just wanted to put that out there for anybody who might be looking for a new cookbook. This week's guest is Ronald Tibbs. Ronald told me that he grew up on comfort food, meat heavy, and a sugar-laden diet. At the age of 31, Ronald had to be put on blood pressure medication. By the time he was 40, he was denied a life insurance policy, and not long after, he was diagnosed with stage 3 liver disease with no known cure. Ronald ended up watching Forks Over Knives, completely changed his diet. He's since lost over 65 pounds, and he feels better than ever. We have a fantastic conversation, and thanks so much for tuning in. I'm here with Ronald Tibbs. I saw his story on Forks Over Knives and reached out, and he was gracious enough to sit down with me for a chat. So first off, Ronald, maybe we could just start off with a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and how much weight you've lost.
Hey, Jason. Thanks for having me on. Well, I'm from Ohio originally, Midwest boy. Grew up there, joined the Marines right out of high school, so traveled a lot around the U.S., and through the years thought I was pretty fit and considered myself fairly healthy until about my max balloon weight in 2012, which I hit about 235 pounds, and my total weight loss is between 65 and 70 pounds. So it's not bad.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think I saw on Forks Over Knives, you had a quote, you grew up on meat, comfort foods, and sugar-laden desserts. What did food look like for you? Can you kind of expound on that a little bit growing up?
Well, I'm product of a single parent family. So my mother didn't cook a lot. She worked. So it was kind of what I put together for myself in the kitchen is what we had until I was old enough to get a job. And then it was McDonald's, and, with all the friends, we'd cruise. And when a friend of mine actually began working at McDonald's, that was the end of it. So, we'd go in there and eat free. And then, in the Marine Corps, the chow hall, they don't hold back on the food line. So you just fill up your tray with, meat and a lot of potatoes and a lot of pasta and cheese. And, occasionally there would be a vegetable on the plate. So, and then when I left the Marines in 1992, I became a police officer in California. So, of course, that schedule is hectic, and you eat when you have time, and when you're on duty, it's, sometimes fast food, or it's you go to the 7-Eleven and just grab something, for a quick snack. Snickers and Dr. Pepper was kind of my go-to for the night shifts that kept me going. So, yeah, I didn't take care of myself, and I still, again, you just think you're young and you're fit and you're semi-healthy. At home, you do what everybody does. You throw meat on the grill when you're off, and chicken and steak, and it was just pretty horrific now that I think back on it.
So you've lost 65 pounds. Were there times in there that, throughout the process that you had considered losing weight previously and given any attempts to it?
No, not really. It wasn't until, like I said, I left the Marines in 92, and I was a police officer until 2002, and I retired on disability. I had some injuries in the line of duty that forced my retirement. And it was at that point that I even became even less active than I had been, and the weight started to creep up. And in 2004, when I my 40th birthday, and I was just really in sad shape. I didn't know it, but I look at pictures now from those times, and it's just really, I can't believe I was in that space. And over those years between that time, my weight would fluctuate. I would gain a little bit, I would lose a little bit. I was never really into, aerobic type exercise. We did the gym every now and then and that kind of thing, but I never really enjoyed running after the Marines. It was like, no more, I'm done. I don't like this. It just hurts too much. So in 2004 is when I got the news about my health. And that's kind of what opened my eyes to, hey, okay, there's something wrong. But even with my experience with the doctors and the experts that I saw, nobody mentioned nutrition. Nobody mentioned, what was causing, my health issues. So again, I was still in the dark, and it didn't play into it that what I was eating and the way I was living in that part of my life was affecting my health. It was just, okay, I'm 40 now and I'm hitting middle age, and I guess this is what's supposed to happen.
Yeah, and I think I read that at the age of 31, you were put on hypertension meds, but didn't like the way that they made you feel. Can you talk about maybe why they, determined that at the age of 31, which to me seems extremely young, that you needed to go on them, and then also what that made you feel like?
Yeah, it's one of the benefits of being a police officer in California. I was doing my training. I actually worked with the sheriff's office in Northern California. And one of my training sites and one of the little communities I worked in for about a year and a half was considered the murder capital of the United States per capita, per population size in the early 90s, which is where I was. So stress wasn't in short supply. And, of course, relationships, it's not good for personal relationships for some people. You have to have a healthy way to, off gas, say, to get rid of that stress. And if you don't have that healthy way to medicate yourself with exercise or meditation or something like that, then, it catches up to you. So I hit a patch for a few days, 1 week, where I just kept having, I wouldn't say panic attacks, but I just felt like I just wasn't right. I was short of breath, and the things were getting to me a little bit. So I went to see the doctor, and I said, oh, yeah, you got high blood pressure. So, here you go, take these meds, take this one for the high blood pressure, and then you're going to take this one because of what these meds are going to do to you. And you need to maybe exercise a little more and don't eat so much salt. That was pretty much it. So I took them for about 6 months, I guess, 6 or 7 months. And I just didn't like the way I felt, lethargic, and it just didn't feel right. I knew there was something that was being changed in my body, that it wasn't comfortable. And I just didn't like the idea of, throwing pills in my face every day. So I just stopped.
And then I think at the age of 40, you failed a life insurance physical. Can you talk about that a little bit? Tell that story.
Yeah, that was an eye opener. That's again where things kind of got real for me, but there was still no answer. There was no reason for it. So in 2004, I applied for the life insurance physical, and they send the tech to the house. They draw blood and take urine and do the blood pressure, the basic questions, background history, that type of thing. And about a week later, I got a call from my insurance agent who said, hey, Ron, well, you're not going to get your life insurance, and they say you should probably go see a doctor. And that's exactly how it came out. I was like, wow, Wes, okay, any idea what that's about? And he said, well, because of patient confidentiality, they couldn't really give me a lot of information. But if I had to guess, based on what they were saying, it has something to do with your liver. I thought, oh, no. See, first thing that came to mind is that when I was young, I started drinking at a pretty young age. And, of course, in the Marines, that's what you do. You're a teenager in your early 20s, and you've got a license to go and just be an idiot. So, but I hadn't been drinking since 1999. So it'd been, 5 years since I'd had any alcohol. And so I thought, well, maybe that was it. And I went, okay, well, I'll go see my doctor. So I visited her. She redid the same blood test and added a couple more just to try to confirm and sort some things out. And then she gave me a recommendation to see a hematologist, a blood doctor at the local cancer center. And of course, when you hear those words, it's like the world comes crashing down on you, and it's like, oh no, this just isn't right. So I went to see my doctor there, and there were several weeks of different tests. And early on, I was told that I do not have cancer. So that was a very good note in all of this, I guess, if I could say there was one. But that was about the only good news I got. I tested positive or had symptoms for several chronic conditions, polycythemia vera, hemochromatosis, which is another liver function, my ferritin levels, which is an enzyme that usually means that your iron levels are very high, but my iron levels were normal. I tested positive for reactive airway disease, and I've never been a smoker, so I have scar tissue in my lungs, the smaller airways in my lungs. My bone marrow was messed up and producing way too many red blood cells, had elevated hematocrit, so my blood was very thick, and the list goes on. But there was never really an explanation as to why. The doctor told me that really the only thing they could do was keep an eye on it, do blood tests every 6 to 8 months. If I needed to do what they call phlebotomies or bloodletting, basically to relieves my body and my arterial system of some of the extra blood so it didn't start to clot or I didn't bleed. And that was about it. I saw the liver doctor because of the liver problems. They did an ultrasound, and there was a small mass in my liver, but he called it hemangioma, which is, I guess, a small cluster of like blood vessels and a gathering of tissues. And it benign. There was no problems. Now, later in life, it could have probably developed into something. But because I also had fatty liver, because I weighed so much at the time, and they did a liver biopsy and found out when it came back from the Mayo Clinic that I had what they called NASH, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. It's also known as non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Never heard of it before. And it was in stage 3. And when they explained that there are 4 stages of liver health, stage 1 is a healthy liver. Stage 2 is, fatty liver. Stage 3 is fibrosis, which is scar tissue, which is where I was. And then you go to cirrhosis, which is liver death. Now, of course, there are different levels of stage 3. You have just a small amount of fibrosis or a large amount. Didn't really tell me where I was in that category. But the fact that, I'm at stage 3 or 4 stages of liver disease and there's no cure, all they can do is keep an eye on it and say, well, you may develop liver cancer. Your liver just may die and you may end up on a liver transplant list. So there you go. I mean, what do? You trust in the doctors and the specialists because that's how we grew up. These are people of authority. And I'm not bashing on the doctors because they go with what they know. They go with the latest in testing. And until this really came to a head in 2012, I probably, if I hadn't gotten to that point, I'd probably still be on that path of, a slow decline. And it's not a good feeling.
Wow. Yeah. Well, speaking of 2012, so, you had a quote that I thought I'd mention, and it said, fast forward to 2012, I had hit bottom. In addition to all the above, I was lethargic and had difficulty concentrating. I no longer had the energy to mow my lawn. I couldn't get throughout the day without a nap. I had a painful red rashes under both arms. I started to suffer frequent cluster headaches. At 235 pounds, I was officially obese. The final straw was a severe and painful reoccurring eye infection that rendered me unable to see clearly for days at a time, and I didn't respond to the prescription steroid ointment and gels. I knew there had to be a better way. That is not a good spot to be in.
No, it's not. And I'm going to back up a little bit too, is that, and I'd gone through and we've all gone through our stuff in life, the things that make us who we are today. And in the late 90s, early 2000s, when I was facing my retirement for these injuries, and I was basically losing my identity. Late 90s is when I decided that alcohol was no longer good for me because that's how I was medicating. So I went through a long cycle of, alcohol and prescription substance abuse, suicidal depression, fought through that, had family that took care of me. And I got back, to a place where I could function. And I learned from some really great doctors that you just have to take time for yourself, when you get to that point. So from that point on, climbing out of that, and I started to feel pretty good about myself. It's like, hey, life is good again. I can do this. I can, be something other than what I was, and it's great. And then 2004 hits, and it's like, oh, here we go, crashing back down on you again. So, yeah, it wasn't good. So you get to that point, and 2004, and I just kept going. I didn't have any answers. I didn't have any suggestions on what to do. And then I moved to Thailand in 2006, actually. And I didn't put this together until after Forks Over Knives. And I spent about 5 months on the island of Koh Tao in Thailand. It's in the Gulf. And my diet changed. I wasn't eating the same way I was in the U.S. I still ate some meat and I had some seafood, but not nearly as much. And I was eating much more rice, many more rice dishes. I was having baked potatoes with like chili sauce and things like that on it, and a lot of fruit, mango and fruit for breakfast and things like that. So, and I'd lost a significant amount of weight. I probably dumped maybe 15 pounds. 18 pounds. And I thought, wow, this is good. I feel good. Of course, I was on the diet boat a lot and swimming a lot. So I was a little more active. And then I moved to Sweden, and where I, spent some time with the woman who's now my wife. And after 8 years in Sweden, it was actually 6 at the time, we got married, and then it's right back into, the ice cream and the grilled pork and, all the heavy cream dishes. And I don't know if you know anything about, Swedish fare, Swedish food. It's typically very rich and really good stuff. But then the weight, crept back up again, and it just didn't click with me there. So in 2012, I got to the point where you read it all. It was, there again. And I looked at myself one day and I thought, this is ridiculous. I said, this isn't fair. This isn't fair to my wife. I'm not the man she married. I'm not the person that I was. And I can't do this anymore. The doctors, even in Sweden, a great medical system there, great care. I filled them in on my past health issues when I first moved there, and we'd follow up tests, and all the blood work was the same, and all of the results were the same, all of these issues. But again, there was nothing that they could, recommend or offer for treatment. So one day I just jumped on the internet. I thought, okay, well, there's got to be a way to deal with this. I'm dying. I literally felt that way. I would wake up some mornings and I just didn't want to open my eyes because it was just so painful. To try to do that and to just get up. So I thought, well, this is it. I'm checking out, and it's not going to happen this way. So after some time on Google and searching liver health and natural, ways to deal with this, of course, Forks Over Knives popped up, and I made a note of it. And I think it was Joe Cross and Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead was another one that we watched. And we watched them, and it was just like a smack in the face, like somebody kicked me right in the forehead. It's like, wow, are you kidding? This can't be true. Here I am eating potatoes and everything you learn. And it's like, okay, well, so we watched it again. And then, of course, you learn all the doctors, all the big names, Neil Barnard, Dr. Esselstyn, and so you start watching everything that they have on YouTube and their TED Talks, and you learn about, all of this data. And it's just like, I got angry. I was like, there's absolutely no way this is going to be true. And sure enough, it was. So after about 3 weeks of research and being retired, I had that time. I had a reason to do it, and I had plenty of time. So I just lived behind the computer for about 3 weeks and just absorbed as much as I could. And, my wife and I, Jeanette and I, talked about it. And she said, let's do it. And she was right there with me. And we jumped in cold turkey overnight. October 20th or that weekend, 2012. From one day to the next, I went in and gutted the kitchen. I actually took pictures of everything we took out of the cupboards and put everything out on our island and on our counters and all the food and processed food and the condiments and all the refined crap, and just tossed it. And that was it. Haven't looked back. 100% plant perfect. And in 5.5 months, it was a wild ride.
So, you mentioned the 5.5 months. What happened, in that time frame? How did you feel? And what did you notice?
Well, the first week or so, of course, we were just getting our feet wet and didn't really have a lot of recipes yet. And there were some resources out there, and a lot of this stuff was still fairly new too. I mean, even in the 6 years that we've been doing this, it's really exploded. So the resources that are there and the sites and the menus and all of that weren't as prevalent. At least I didn't see them. So we kind of were just learning as we went along, and we got a couple of cookbooks and got some ideas. But the first, I'd say 6 to 8 days, maybe, I felt really bad. Oh, I was just, horrific. And I don't know if it was because my body was I was allowing my body to finally just flush all of the crap that I'd been pouring down my throat. It was finally getting it through my system, going through the lymph system and through my liver, and my body was having to deal with all of that. But after that 9 or 10 day mark, it was like a light switch flipped, and it was like, wow, what is this? I have a clear head. And right before we had started, I actually had begun to get another one of these eye infections. And what that was is my eyes would start to burn on one side or the other. Then it ended up being both at the same time toward the end. But I would get really itchy around the eye, and it would start to get painful inside, and then it would have this pussy discharge, and it would swell up. Like a conjunctivitis, I guess is what we called it when we were kids, where you'd wake up with a crusty eye, and you'd have to take the warm compress to clear your eye away. But they were always accompanied with cluster migraine headaches on either side, behind the eye. And one of those infections had just started about the time that we transitioned, and it didn't come to its full peak of its, pain, and it went away, and I haven't had another one since. So it's the things like that. It's the rashes and just my body. I would say my body was finally just telling me, look, we're shutting down. We're having to, my body was having to change and move its awareness away from whatever it was trying to do to focus on the things that were keeping me alive. And the rest of my immune system was just up for grabs, and it wasn't good. So after that 10 days and that light switch kicked, and I had this energy, I thought, wow, this is unreal. And then I started to notice, on the scale, a decent amount of weight coming off every week. I mean, I wasn't dropping, huge amounts right away, but it started to shed, and the clothes started to get loose again, and the aches and pains that I had every day and the energy crept. I was able to actually go out and push a lawnmower around, and get it all done in one day. We had about an acre property. We lived on a farm, so I was out pushing a lawnmower thinking, oh, that's my exercise, and I couldn't even do that, So it was good to have all of that. And actually, and it was about, I guess, 3 weeks. This was October. I had gone in for blood work. No, let's say about a month. It was about 4 weeks later. I have it all. I looked at the dates back that far. That I had scheduled my annual, blood work to be done toward the end of the year. And when I had that blood work done, within the first month, all of those, danger signs, the liver enzyme, ALT, AST, were all down in the low normal range. My ferritin levels had dropped down to normal. The last time I had my cholesterol checked, it was like 210, I think, which in the grand scheme of things is what they consider normal these days. But still, as you know, it's ridiculously high. And that was probably 3 years before I hit my rock bottom. So I'd say it was probably closer to maybe 220. It could have been a lot higher. And that was down to 127. So from 210 to 127 without one pill, no supplements. So all of those markers were down in the low normal range. Now for me, then it began, okay, well, does that mean I'm healthy? And am I still facing these issues? And of course, you do more research on liver health, and you learn that the liver is one of the organs that can regenerate. It can, produce new cell structure, and it's given the opportunity. So the way I look at it now is that I don't feel it's progressing. My NASH is not progressing anymore, and it's been 6 years now, and those levels are still very low to this day. And so at least I'm not worried about that part of it in the future anymore.
Wow.
And it's great. It's great just having the energy. I mean, and I hear people joke about how all these vegans or all these people, they lose weight. They have to go run marathons or they become triathletes. What is that? It's so stupid. I'm like, well, I didn't even exercise during those 5.5 months. It was, winter in Sweden. And all I did was go out and walk our dog. We had a big German Shepherd. We take him out 3 or 4 times a day. And that was the only exercise I had. And, 65 pounds in 5.5 months, that's not too shabby, just walking. So with this energy now, I'm like, well, what am I going to do with this? So I bought a bike, and I thought, okay, well, I'm not big on running. I don't really like it. So I got a bicycle, and thinking, well, I've got to, something's not right. I have to make sure this bike is measured properly. And I started checking YouTube, how dangerous that is. And I fell down that rabbit hole, and then it's like I saw, and I was aware of what the Ironman was. Everybody growing up in the U.S., what Kona is, and that whole bit. But it's always in the back of your mind. It's these insane people that are doing this, and So I watched a video of it wasn't Sister Buter, the Iron Nun. It was another woman in her 70s, mid late 70s, that they had a little 2-minute video clip of her crossing Kona at 16 hours and 40 minutes or 50 minutes right at the bell. And I thought, wow. So you know what? If she can do this, I can do this. So then I got into triathlon and got rid of my energy that way. So yeah, it's pretty incredible what it all does for you.
Yeah, that's quite a difference to not being able to move on to getting full on into triathlon. I'm thinking you were a Marine, you were a police officer for a long time. There is a prevailing thought that, if you're going to be a man, you got to eat meat and, you got to eat a lot of it. And it sounds like you had done that for a long time. So what was that process like for you mentally, kind of going through what it sounds like, completely changing what was on your plate?
I didn't care, to be honest with you. I think what helped me in this, and we talk about food, if you'd have told me, 6 years before that I was going to be, plant-based, a vegan, very clean, healthy eating vegan, I would have probably said, yeah, okay, whatever, but I got to the point when I saw the research and when it hit me, I thought this makes sense. So there was no question. There was no doubt. I didn't think that I should, once I started looking into it and it all made sense and there wasn't just somebody claiming that this was true. I started looking at the studies. I started looking at, some of these reports that they talked about and Dr. Greger and, checking out their literature. So for me, it was an easy switch. I had gotten to that point where I was scared. I think when I talk to people, there has to be some catalyst. There has to be something that jars you enough to make you want to see, the benefits of this lifestyle, whether it be because of the animal agriculture, animal welfare, and, or the environment, or for me, it was health. So if you are jarred enough, I think by one of those three main factors, or if it's, maybe something to do with your religious beliefs too, it makes it a lot easier. Talking about food is as volatile for people as politics and religion, so I had to learn, it took me a while. It was a long road to get there, but I had to learn that the conversation you can't have it just out of the blue. There have to be certain times when you bring it up or someone asks a question. And even if you answer them sometimes and they get the answer they didn't think they were going to get, they begin to look at me like I'm Medusa and I have snakes growing out of my head, like cheese. You don't eat cheese, and that's it. You can see the wall comes up. Their ears, no, I don't want to hear it anymore. So that for me has been the toughest part. The transition was easy. There was no doubt, especially when I started feeling it. After that first 10 days, it was like, okay, this is awesome. This is it. I'll live the rest of my life this way, however long that is, and and if I can help other people, realize what I've realized and learn from that, that's great. That was the toughest part was explaining it to people or, fielding those questions or trying to communicate this to people in my family or friends. Now, both of our families, they thought immediately that we were, insane. They were the ones that had the problems, not us. For us, it made total sense. We were, I guess we were told we were in a cult, that it was ridiculous and, oh, you're too skinny. And I'm like, oh, no, I like to use the word lean, and so, yeah, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure you've probably run across that yourself many times.
Yeah, no, for sure. The Medusa, look at you like you have snakes coming out of your head is pretty accurate sometimes. And it's funny and sad because people will say, oh, you're too skinny now, or you don't need to lose any more weight. And I've got a buddy who always says, well, you never said that I look good did I look good when I was, 200 pounds heavier or 100 pounds heavier,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say it's unfortunate that's almost accepted as like, oh, maybe I am too skinny or too whatever. When reality is like, no, I've been kind of uncomfortable with this for a long time. I've been hurting for a long time, and I'm finally on a better track. And this is what you're telling me.
Yeah, exactly. Too skinny. Well, if I'm too skinny, fine, then I'm too skinny for you. But I feel great. And the great thing about it is you don't count calories. You don't count carbohydrates. You don't consider micronutrients or macronutrients. You don't worry about, there's no point system. You just eat what you want when you want. You eat as much as you want until you're full, and that's it, and it's so user stupid. It just made it, I didn't have to worry about anything. And I stopped losing weight when my body got to the point where it said, okay, I'm comfortable here. I eat the same way that I did when I started. So if it was, oh, it's not healthy to lose that much weight so quickly. I'm like, well, yeah, if you're starving yourself, or if you're restricting your portion sizes or restricting your caloric intake to very unhealthy levels, yeah, okay, that can be a problem. But that wasn't the point. I was probably getting more nutrition, the nutrient dense foods we eat. So I ate the same way from the start, the same way I do now. I lost all the weight I did as quickly as I did, but when my body got to that point, it was about 168, 169 pounds, 77 kilos. That's where I leveled out. Now, on my heavier training days during the summer here in Spain, it gets hot and your metabolism picks up, and I'll lose a little bit more water weight. So I would have to make sure that I kept my calories up. I think the lowest I got was 72 kilos, which is another 10 pounds, which I did feel I was a little too thin then. So I kicked my calories up a little bit to compensate for that, and then came right back up, and everything's fine. So,
and I know you've lived overseas. You're currently in Spain. How have you found this to be living, in other places, traveling? I know it can be like an absolute blessing or an absolute curse.
Yeah. Well, here on Mallorca too, they really, in Spain, it's predominantly it's a meat heavy culture, and people say, oh, the Mediterranean diet. Well, yeah, maybe the ancient Mediterranean diet was something you probably would have considered to be healthy, but these days it's been morphed and changed. So the ham, the black pigs, and the cured ham and meat here on the island especially is a really big thing. And seafood. The village we live in is right on the sea. We live in a little fishing village, a lot of restaurants. So for us to go out, there is a vegan community here. There is a vegan presence in Palma, in the main city. And there are some vegan restaurants, but it's not healthy vegan. So, and for me, for the first 2.5 years, I didn't eat anything other than it was pure forks over knives, straight, whole food, plant-based, no salt, no added oils, no refined sugars. And I was just totally, that was it. That was the way it was going to be. So when we did move and, you start meeting new people, or if you're going to go out and you think, oh, okay, I'm going to have to have a vegan meal. Oh no, that's just, and of course restaurants, they add a lot of oil to the food, and some don't mind if you ask, not to do this or not to do that. But for the most part, when we go out now, it's pizza. We order there. The only bad thing there is it's white refined flour in the crust, unless you get like a seicha flour, which is a little more grain or, based. But then you just get their vegetarian pizza without cheese, and so that's pretty much the safe bet. But yeah, to talk to the people in restaurants here and tell them that you're vegan, and they look at you like vegan. Some people have never even heard the word. They know vegetarian, they know of that word, but some people it's just vegan. What is that? It's like no meat, no milk, no. It's like, okay, you can leave the restaurant now. So. It hasn't been that bad, but yeah, it's interesting. Sweden is catching on. Dairy is huge up there. The milk and ice cream, and Jeanette and I, we laugh because we saw we were on this path. She put on a little bit of weight too. She'll be the first to tell you. On our wedding day in 2011, we look at pictures now. We're like, oh my God, really? Did we look like that? And it's just, and then I wasn't really. I don't think I was technically obese. I was clearly overweight, but it wasn't that last year after we got married that it really. So, Jeanette will tell you, we put ourselves on this path. We don't watch a lot of television, and it's just, Netflix or whatever. But one of our guilty pleasures was watching Biggest Losers. And it wasn't because it was entertaining, but we would sit on the couch. We'd get back from the grocery store, and we'd usually buy, some of the roasted chickens that they have in the deli section. So we didn't feel like cooking that night. And in Sweden, they have this wall of treats they call godis, Godis, and it's this bulk. And it's these plastic containers with little shovels. And you just pick up your bag and you just shovel everything in, whatever you want, and it's by weight. And of course, I would get the healthy stuff. I would get the chocolate yogurt covered peanuts and raisins and the peanut clusters with chocolate. And, so all the healthy advertised stuff. So we would sit there on the couch watching Biggest Loser with the bag of sweets on the table, and I would have my single serving size of Ben and Jerry's chocolate ice cream, and I would eat that, and we would say to ourselves, my Lord, I just feel so badly for these people. I said, how can someone get that big? How do you let yourself get that big? And we were on our way, and it happens so slowly, and especially with me and my history, you'd think that I would, but it just never connected. I was never told it was the food. So all of that, it got really funny. So Sweden, it's like when we transitioned up there, that was really the toughest part. Is they look at you like, everything has milk in it, everything has heavy cream in it, the Swedish pancakes, and of course the meatballs, and it was pretty rough with the family and friends, but for us it was easy. It was a no-brainer.
Well, it makes sense, when for myself, it was kind of a accidental, gradual, feel better, do better, become better kind of situation. But for somebody like yourself, when you've got your health, your life, your well-being, and not only from a future standpoint, but your quality of life, it sounded like had reached a real low, people sometimes ask me like, don't you miss the pizza, or don't you miss the ice cream, or don't you whatever? Like for you, it's like, well, I don't miss having liver disease. I don't miss having pounding headaches, and I don't miss looking at my yard and dreading doing the grass or having pus coming out of my eyes.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. And no, I don't miss it because you learn too very quickly, especially these days with all the resources that are out there, all the websites, and, it's so easy to do if you don't have to think about anything. And all of those foods you can still have. You just modify them a little bit. Now, of course, they're not going to taste exactly the same that you remember them. But after 2 weeks, your taste buds adjust anyway, as you know. I mean, so it doesn't matter. You're tasting foods in a completely different way. And it's really liberating. It's just an amazing thing. If I want ice cream, then I freeze bananas, and I have frozen fruit, and I make what they call nice cream. And I can put strawberry in it, or I can put, raw cacao and cacao nibs and have chocolate crunch, or, whatever. So no, I don't miss it. I certainly don't miss the way it made me feel. Yeah. And of course, when you transition like this too, I transitioned for health reasons now, and so did Jeanette. But now she's kind of morphed. She doesn't eat as cleanly as I do. She's more vegan now, but ethical vegan. And she's always been an animal lover. So for her, I think it was a big transition too, for her to realize, she called herself an animal lover, and she used to own like 3 horses and had 30 birds and 5 dogs. And I mean, it's just, and animals flock to her. It's just something about her as a person. And that's where she connects with, with the energy around her. But for her to come to a realization was to truly see what it was that she was doing when she was putting these foods into her body to the animals. And I think that was her biggest switch. So now I was exposed to that too. I was forced to look at that. You walk through life with your blinders on. It's like eggs, chicken, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But then when you're exposed to that, it's just, you get such a, I don't know, you probably feel the same way. It's just, it comes at you from all sides. It's like, wow, not only am I healthy now and I'm doing the right thing by me and by the people that I love and the people that care about me, I'm also doing so many wonderful things for other, for the animals and for the environment. So it's a win-win-win for everybody. It's incredible. Yeah.
It's funny how when you start to make positive decisions, on your own behalf, that begins to affect, those other things around you, the people, the animals, everything else. Is there anything about this process that surprised you when you look back, you look back at the last, 10 years or so versus, all the time before that you just weren't expecting where you'd be now?
That's a good question. I don't really think about it. I'm grateful that I did find forks over knives. I think the biggest surprise was how much pushback I got from family and from some of my friends, but the closest people in your life that haven't reached that moment, that catalyst. Now I can't say for all of them. My mother has, she has changed. She's cut out meat from her diet and she switched her yogurt, her taste for yogurt over to soy yogurt or things like that. So she's gotten rid of the dairy when she can and gone what she considers vegetarian. So I'm happy about that. She got that, and she's also experienced some benefits in cholesterol. But the rest of the family, from both of our families, Jeanette and both our families, the pushback we got, I think, was a big shock. I didn't expect it to be like, whoa, And yeah, like I said, we were told that we had joined a cult and that it was just all some big fad, and all of the arguments. Oh, we revolved to eat meat, and you're blah blah. I'm thinking, okay, well, whatever. That was the toughest part. And I think learning more about myself too in this process. I like I said, I'd come from some pretty dark places back in the late '90s, so I'd been through that, and I knew what depths were. I knew what life was about, and I'd seen some pretty ugly things in our culture, and been through all of that. So. And then morphing out of that and becoming the person that I thought I was, the decent person, now taking this next step. And I don't want this to sound like I'm being all righteous and that, people that aren't like this aren't good people. That's not where I'm going. But I'm talking about me personally. I've found another place in me that's more settled. It's more grounded. So, and I'm not a spiritual person. I'm not an overly religious person or anything. But to have that now settle a little bit more, I think is really nice, and I appreciate that in life. I'm more relaxed, I guess. Of course, I live on an island in the Med, so it has its moments. But so, I think too, one of the things I try to tell people if I'm asked questions, or it's not just the food, these four components. Dean Ornish, of course, in his lifestyle medicine program is what I largely will base my recommendations on. And it's not just the food, but it's also moderate exercise. And any exercise that you will do is good exercise. That's the best. People are like, well, what's the best exercise? Okay, what's an exercise you'll do? X, Y, Z. Okay, then that's the best for you. And then, of course, finding a way to relieve stress. And in parts of, earlier in my life, learning how to be selfish, and taking you time. Whatever that looks like, 20 minutes, an hour a day, 2 hours a day, you have to find a way to do that, especially in these times. It's just so much going on. Everybody needs to just take a little time and take a breath and relax. And I guess you call it meditation, whatever that looks like. You write in a journal, go ride a bike, go walk, on a sidewalk. And most people live in neighborhoods that they kind of like, or they maybe wouldn't live there unless they're forced to by work. But there's always somewhere around where you're living that drew you to that neighborhood. So reconnect with that, go out and just get grounded and reconnect with that, and just try to find a place, inside where you can be a person that you're comfortable being around by yourself, so I've learned to do that more now after this transition.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. If you were going to have a conversation with somebody who is at the beginning of this journey, who's trying to figure things out, who's trying to make that next step forward to take care of themselves, what would you tell that person on day one?
I would say they have to ask themselves why they want to do it. What is it that's, what is their catalyst? I go back to that word, but that's it. It's what is their starting point, and why is it important for you to make this switch, and how important is that? Is this something that you are going to be able to do in the face of people ridiculing you, making fun of you, the mainstream media with all of the advertising and the marketing, being bombarded on this? Is what you are telling yourself going to be stronger than all of that? And if they can say yes, then I say, well, then you've got the battle won. At this point, it's just you learning. And I would also recommend to do the research. Now, I know most people, they're not interested in the science. They're not interested in nutrition or nutrients or what has in, because the first person that tells me, well, I read this, I'm like, okay, you read that study while you were sitting at the drive-thru at Burger King, right? Or you're waiting in line at Taco Bell. Tell me, when you're waiting for that food to be served to you in that paper bag, that you had all of these nutrition issues on your mind, that you were being conscious of, what you were putting in your body. So don't start that now. But I would recommend that people do study a little bit, learn some of this stuff. You watch Forks Over Knives, you get the books, you get Proteinaholic from Dr. Garth, and you get, Dr. Greger's book, How Not to Die, and you read these books and you learn. And also Dr. Pam Popper. I'm sure you are familiar with Pam. You've interviewed her, haven't you?
I have not. No, I haven't.
Okay. but she's got a great resource for information. And she actually, with her business, they have classes and they teach people how to review these scientific studies and how to sort through them to understand what is real and what is biased, cherry picking of information. So I had to learn a little bit about that as well, is learning how to actually analyze these reports and if the information in it was going to be something you'd want to pay attention to. So I would say if you're that serious about your health and you want to learn this stuff, then take a little time and invest some of your time and energy into it, because you're going to buy into it more that way. And it's going to be easier for you. The next headline that pops up that says, hey, you can put butter in your coffee again and you're going to be perfect, you're going to be less likely to say, okay, you know what, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Give me a big cheese pizza with pepperoni. So, yeah, the more you learn and get invested in that side of it and you feel more comfortable, I think one way, or one of the reasons that people tend to maybe backslide a little or maybe come off the wagon is because of the outside pressure from friends, pressure from family, and they don't feel comfortable in having that discussion. They don't know how to respond to the hype or to the myth or, oh, that was debunked or blah, 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 all the droning on. They don't feel comfortable responding to that. So it's like, oh, okay, I don't want to do this. So if you can maybe become a little more confident in that, then it's gonna go a long way to helping them be successful and reach their goals.
That's great advice. And then, if you could have a conversation with your former self whenever you were earlier in life and you were at the chow hall.
What stage? What age?
Or Snickers and Dr. Pepper. I guess pick your time.
Wow, let me make some notes here.
What would you say to that person? Give some kind words of encouragement.
Oh, if me today met me 20 years ago, I would say, hey, look, you know what? I'd say 30 years ago. So I'll be 54 in March. So yeah, in my early 20s. If me today met me at 22, 24, I'd say, you got the world by the whats and you think you're living life. And I encourage you to continue to travel and enjoy and suck everything you can out of the military and just be the person you're going to be. But I'm going to throw some little tidbits in that you need to be thinking about. And yeah, I would just kind of say you're going to be vegan and you're going to enjoy it and you're going to thank me later for telling you to do it. You need to stop drinking now and not later, little things like that, or a little bit less anyway. I think those are the things that got me in the most trouble, but yeah, that's a tough one. That's a question you almost have to prepare for. You can't really answer that without thinking about it for a little bit, because I was screwed up through the years. It was rough.
Yeah. Well, it's something you'll be thinking about now. Well, if people are hearing your story and this is resonating with them and they'd love to connect with you, what's the best way for people to do that?
Well, I actually have a website I just launched, and one of the things that I've recently learned, and it's one of the things I had to learn was to let go of things, let go of the bad, but sometimes you also have to understand you have to let go of the good. And one of the reasons I retired was one of my injuries was a left knee injury that required surgery. I had some of the cartilage taken out of it. And when I was just running the Olympic distance triathlon stuff and putting in the shorter miles and the shorter runs, it wasn't that bad. But when I started amping up and ramping up the distance and the times for the full distance Ironman course, my knee flared up on me and I started having some pain. And after about 11 months or so, not quite a year, it got to the point where I had to go in and have it checked again, and it's a mess. So I'm done training now until the treatments are caught up to the type of injury that I have with the cartilage in my knee and a partially torn ACL and things like that. Then I'm no longer going to be doing triathlon. So I'm going to start finding a way to use my time, and it's to do videos, educational videos talking about my story, a blog. And I've launched a website, which is sort of a portal. It's a place where I have just a basic breakdown of what a whole food plant-based diet and lifestyle is. It's something that I wish I would have found when I first started doing the research. I know there were some places out there that I just didn't run across. The people had kind of gathered this information, all of the doctors, all of the books, all of the documentaries, a little bit of a description of the different things that are involved in this. And it's on the internet, it's www.dailyfitness.com. www.oh2.life, L-I-F-E. And that's basically OH2 for me it's my little symbol for optimal health and happiness, which is where I feel I've reached in life. I'm at my optimal health, and I don't remember, ever being this happy. And that's the kind of life that I would wish for everybody. And so if there are people that have questions, I'm more than happy to talk to people about it or answer the questions. If I don't have the answer, we can look for it together, or I can, refer people to the other experts. People a hell of a lot smarter than me have been doing this for decades. I'm doing nothing more than just echoing, what the giants, the shoulders, that we stand on. And so it's, oh2.life. Eventually there'll be a YouTube channel that'll come along with that, with probably some weekly vlogs and cooking, just to show how easy it is, and just sharing that. Give me something to do and be, tap into my creative brain.
Awesome. Well, Ronald, thanks so much for the time. I'll look forward to keeping up with you. I'll include links to that. And thanks for sharing your story. And
absolutely, Jason.
Look forward to seeing you in Spain one day.
Hey, absolutely. Come over anytime. Actually, we're thinking, and we talked about this, is we've got some room down here. They're just untold fincas, these little rustic resorts and these farm centers all over the island. And maybe we do some kind of a retreat, maybe a week or 2 week retreat, and get some people like minds together and maybe do some kind of a raffle or something and give away a spot and bring over maybe 10 or 12 people and see if we can make some people healthy.
Awesome. Well, that sounds
great
fantastic.
to have you along.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again. I really appreciate you contacting me. It's been a lot of fun. We need to stay in touch, and I've learned more about your story now and all of your weight loss. My Lord, man, you dumped a ton of weight. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm happy for it. That's great.
Yeah, we'll certainly be in touch.
All right. Take care.